Welcome viewers, I'm Mary Neiman. I'll be presenting the news for you today. Stay tuned. Survivors and families of victims of Mahbaradegu massacre say they're hopeful that the perpetrators will be held accountable in the near future. 2 years into the massacre, the victims underscored that transitional justice is a key to a permanent peace, while stating no significant step has been taken so far to serve justice. Saron Zagai has more.
In early March of 2021, a video of members of Ethiopian National Defense Forces leading a group of unarmed Tigrayan men to the edge of a cliff and executing them surfaced on social media. That tragic event took place in the outskirts of the town of Mahbaradegu in central Tigray on the 16th of January 2021. According to the residents, Ethiopian troops went house to house, forcefully taking young men with them. The troops led the group of unarmed men to the edge of a cliff, shot them at point-blank range, and pushed their bodies over the cliff while mocking and taunting their bodies. Halafom Wolde Gergis, Dr. Haile Gebramedhin, and Priest Takhlai Gebramedhin. These are few of the names of the victims of the Mahbaradegu massacre. Desta Haile Selassie from Tighat tells us that more than 74 men, ranging from 16 to 65 years old, were extrajudicially killed that day.
It was committed by the Ethiopian soldiers on the 16th of January 2021. It was filmed by Ethiopian soldier named Fafi, if I remember his name correctly, and it was investigated and reported by the CNN, the BBC, and the Amnesty International. According to the family members and the witness we spoke to, the number of victims is estimated to be over 74. But at Tighat Media, we have verified 54 of them, and the composition looks like, from the data that we have now, are all men, and most of them are like young men. The youngest is 16, and the oldest is about 65.
We spoke to a family of a victim who lost two of her younger brothers, Fitsum Takhlu, 18, and Kubrom Takhlu, 28, to the massacre. She refused to reveal her face as she feared retaliation against her family members remaining there. I lost two of my younger brothers, Kubrom Takhlu and Fitsum Takhlu. Kubrom was 28 years old, and Fitsum was just 18. Ethiopian forces came to the town in the afternoon, then they took them from home. I'm only telling you about my brothers, but I lost many family members there. They were all gathered at our house, and they took them all. Then they executed them on the edge of the cliff, just like you saw on the videos. They are cruel. They were not troops or fighters. They were just students, farmers, merchants. They were all civilians. Fitsum was a student. According to Desta, atrocities and massacres are still being committed on Tigrayan civilians even after the signing of a peace deal, especially in areas under the occupation of Eritrean and Amhara forces. Burhan also says, for the peace to be full, external forces need to withdraw from Tigray.
I have been receiving a lot of atrocity reports after the signing of what they call the peace agreement in Pretoria, in South Africa, on the 2nd of November 2022. Mainly in the areas of Damariam, Shawito, around Adwa, Dabagarima, in the districts of Glomahada, and in Europe, as you know, the Eritrean soldiers and the Amhara forces are still in the territory of Tigray, and they are committing horrific war crimes against the people of Tigray.
If we're talking about peace, all of Tigray needs to be peaceful. In my opinion, the peace is only limited in Magale and its surrounding areas. Most parts of Tigray are still in misery. External forces are still operating there. My families there are still living in fear. They can't move freely. So for the peace to be full, external forces need to withdraw from Tigray. 2 years into the massacre, survivors and families of victims are still waiting for justice. Burhan thinks that the best compensation for the killing of her brothers is to see the perpetrators held accountable. She is disappointed to see nothing being done so far, but she is also hopeful that her brother's killers will be held accountable in the near future.
ምንም ተገብራስ ካሕዘስ ምንም የለን ወለክስ ናብ ሕጊ ክቐርቡ እዮም
There's nothing done so far. We're just hopeful that one day they're going to be held accountable because they killed innocent civilians. Justice must be served. Justice is our only compensation.
ናብ ሕጊ ክቐርቡ ክዳነ የለዎም ንሳተምኮ ኦልሬዲ መይተው እዮም ግን
My brothers are already gone. They're not going to come back. But watching my brother's killers held accountable is the only compensation for me and my family. Desta and Burhan say that transitional justice is key for a permanent peace during these times.
So for a permanent peace to prevail between the government of Tigray and the government of Ethiopia, the first thing that should be done is the Ethiopian government should recognize all the genocidal crimes and crimes against humanity committed in Tigray over the past 2 years. It's not only that. I mean, you can't kill more than 1 million people. You can't rape more than 120,000 Tigrayan women and girls. You can't destroy all the basic infrastructures of Tigray and get away with it. It's not going to happen. So the second thing should be there should be a transparent transitional justice process that incorporates the international human rights organizations like the Amnesty International, the Human Rights Watch, the International Criminal Court, and the United Nations Human Rights Commissions to investigate all the war crimes and to get the perpetrators accountable for all the crimes they committed over the past 2 years in Tigray.
ኩሉ ዝፍጸም ዘለና ተፈጸመለ ሕዝለ ዝፍጸም ዘሎ ግን ኩሉ ክጻረሎ
All the crimes that have been committed or that are still being committed need to be thoroughly investigated. All the perpetrators need to stand in front of the court. They need to be held accountable.
Team of experts from the Ministry of Industry sent to assess the damage on industries in Tigray said they couldn't extend their visit out of Mekelle due to security issues. The experts said this on Monday while visiting industries in the capital. Abizgo has the report.
Team of experts from the Ministry of Industry arrived in Mekelle on Saturday to assess the amount of destructions killed on manufacturing sector in the region. The experts say they cannot go beyond Mekelle and surroundings due to security issues.
We will assess the total amount of destruction next time. For this visit, we have only covered Mekelle and surrounding because there are security problems in other areas. For us to travel to places such as Adigrat, Adwa, Shire and other areas, there must be security assurance.
The team of experts visited Sheba Leather Factory and Samayata Marble Factory in Wara, 42 kilometers from the capital Mekelle, where they said have seen the worst destruction.
From those observations, especially some manufacturing industries almost out of use.
Sheba Leather Fabric and Samayata
We have seen Sheva Laser Factory and Samayata Marble Factory. The destruction we observed there is very bad and hard to endure. We have seen how war is extremely destructive. It's very sad. We have really felt pain. We can say the factories are destroyed completely.
በጣም የሚያሳዝን ነገር ነው ያየነው ነገር ተሰማን በጣም ተሰምቶናል
The two industries are almost out of functions. This is what we call is hard for us.
Industries in Tigray were places where youngsters worked, the local communities served, and the country gained hard currencies. All industry in Tigray were forced to stop manufacturing in November of 2020 when the war between Ethiopian federal government and Tigray regional state was fired. The experts say they are in Tigray to support the swift restoration of these industries back to function.
Our focus or our attention is for the industry manufacturing, especially for the manufacturing industries observation. Especially for assessment, generally for assessment of the problem of the industry's development. What is the current situation of or the current problem of the industries in Tigray, Mekelle and around the Mekelle areas.
Eritrean forces that joined the war alongside the Ethiopian army are accused of looting, loading and destruction of the manufacturing and other sectors in Tigray.
Federal Supreme Court President Ma'aza Shannafi resigned her job on her consent after 4 years in charge. In its meeting today, House of People's Representatives approved her resignation and appointed Tedros Mehret, assistant professor at Addis Ababa University School of Law, as the new Supreme Court President. In August of 2019, head of Tigray Justice Bureau Amanila Safa criticized Ma'aza on a remark during Justice Awareness Forum where she mentioned President Eisenhower's measure to force as a means to suppress an American state that attempted to defy court order, emphasizing the same measure could be taken on Tigray that claimed its right to carry out election. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed nominated Ma'aza as federal Supreme Court President in November of 2018. IDPs from the district of Irob Eastern Zone of Tigray said that Eritrean troops are still committing atrocities on Tigrayan civilians. They called for immediate withdrawal of these troops from Tigrayan territories. Noam Hadgu reports.
IDPs from Irob in eastern zone of Tigray say the atrocities committed by the Eritrean troops are still continuing despite the signing of a peace deal between the governments of Ethiopia and regional governments of Tigray that includes the withdrawal of non-ENDF forces from Tigray.
In the first place, the atrocities committed by the Eritrean troops on civilians, especially on women and youngsters, and also the elders, are far too many. Besides, the looting of civilian properties is unspeakable.
Our houses are burnt. Our belongings are looted, and those who remain there were slaughtered. Besides, our land is at their hand.
Eritrean troops are still murdering people and raping women. On top of that, we do not know who's alive or dead from our loved ones yet, as they are blocked. People are dying of lack of food and diseases.
While expressing their happiness regarding the peace agreement, the IDPs underscored the mandate of the federal government to expedite the withdrawal of Eritrean forces from Tigray.
In order to sustain peace in our region, the invading Eritrean forces should withdraw from our land immediately.
Tigrayans are suffering as their houses are burnt and their belongings looted. The atrocities committed by the Eritrean forces are unspeakable. The Tigrayan people are still suffering as their belongings are looted and burnt by the invading force. If the federal government does not speed up the withdrawal of these forces, there won't be hope for us.
There is no food, no medicine, and no transportation. We demand the withdrawal of Eritrean troops.
On a related news, IDPs from Zalambasa, Eastern Tigray, said the federal government of Ethiopia should force Eritrean forces to expedite their withdrawal from Tigray based on the peace accord signed in Pretoria so that they would return home. Aragaratensei reports.
Withdrawal of foreign and non-ENDF forces from Tigray is part of the Pretoria peace agreement signed between the federal government of Ethiopia and the government of Tigray. However, according to credible sources, Eritrean forces, the Amhara militia and Fano vigilante groups have continued their existence in Tigray and they are committing heinous crimes on the people of Tigray. IDPs from Zalambasa, Eastern Tigray, who are currently sheltering in an IDP center in Mekelle, say that the Ethiopian government and the international community should work to speed up the withdrawal of the forces from Tigray so that they will return home.
The federal government should discharge its responsibility in compelling the Eritrean forces to withdraw from Tigray. If Tigray is part of Ethiopia, the Ethiopian government should safeguard its sovereignty by clearing all invading forces from the territories they have occupied.
I call for the immediate withdrawal of Eritrean forces from Tigray. It's the mandate of the federal government of Ethiopia to compel Eritrean's government to withdraw its forces from Tigray.
The IDPs also expressed their hope that the peace deal will be fully implemented and they would return home and reconstruct their destroyed homes and renew damaged infrastructure in their locality.
Peace is at the center of all victories. We've fought for peace. I'm happy with the peace deal, and I hope it will be fully practical. We want to return home and rebuild our homes, putting aside everything we've lost, including our unharvested crops, looted properties, and ruined homes. We demand the immediate withdrawal of Eritrean forces.
The peace deal has brought a glimmer of hope to the people of Tigray, but they haven't been fully relieved from the suffer they had before, as the Eritrean forces are still occupying many parts of Tigray and committing atrocious acts. Our children are being slaughtered and our wives are sexually assaulted.
We hope that we would return home soon. We believe that the federal government would do something to return us home. We appreciate the peace agreement. We've started meeting our relatives on the phone as telecom has been resumed. We want Eritrean forces to immediately withdraw from our area so that we would reside in our locality and restore our normal lives.
The IDPs reiterated that Eritrean forces have been committing heinous crimes in the areas they occupied, from looting private and public properties to sexual violence, and they fled to escape from such gruesome atrocities.
The atrocities committed in our areas are horrendous. I lack words to explain it. Eritrean forces killed dozens of civilians in our area. They killed Priest Haile, his brother Hadgu, a man with disability, and his son while in their homes. Women and girls were raped in front of their families.
Starting from their first arrival, Eritrean forces have been looting and vandalizing public and private properties. They've persisted killing civilians and raping women. We fled from Zalambesa to Fatsi, then to Ma'ala to escape atrocities.
Earlier last week, the Monitoring, Verification and Compliance team in Ma'ala reported that they have officially launched disarmament of heavy weaponry as per the Pretoria Peace Deal and Kenyan Declaration. Many have been expressing their hopes that this would be followed by the withdrawal of Eritrean forces and the Amhara militia and Fano groups from Tigray. But these forces have extended their stay as days count.
Daniel Tagany, a cancer patient whose family has been devastated by 2 years' war in Tigray, says he's forced to live in a 3x4 metal container with his 7 family members as he couldn't afford renting a house due to the depletion of all sources of income amid the war. Aragay Garumkel has the details.
Reports revealed many times that the 2 years war on Tigray has collapsed the socio-economic structure of the region. As a result, many families are forced to endure 2 years of escalating devastation. However, the devastation Daniel and his family are enduring is unspeakable, as they are forced to live on a small metal container and barely able to make both ends meet. Daniel Muhammad, a father of 5 who is currently suffering from a prostate cancer, says his life and the life of his family are darkened due to the 2 years war on Tigray and his personal illness.
የመጣሁት ከጉራጌ ክልል ነው። እዚህ ሚስቴ የመቀሌ ልጅ ነች።
I am a Gurage descendant and my wife is from Maqala. I used to work at butchery factory at Abergele. We used to lead a good life as we were working hard to raise our children. But currently, we are found in a very devastating situation as we are unable to pay for our house rent. Our children are suffering from the cold of the night.
According to Zaid Gabraslase, Daniel's wife, their life was lowered to this stage due to the 2 years horrible war on Tigray and the sickness of her husband.
I had a small shop before the start of the war on Tigray, and I had enough money to run my own business. I hadn't had any problem to feed my own children then, but after the start of the war on 2020, my husband, who used to help me a lot, got sick. Then we got bankrupted to cover his medical expenses. After the shop became empty, I couldn't be able to feed my children and pay my rent, so I am forced to live in the small metal container along with my children.
Zaid says currently they are barely surviving due to the charities of others. Otherwise, they have nothing to eat or drink.
Currently, I am found in a very desperate situation. I have nothing to feed my children. We have nothing to shelter ourselves, so we are forced to live on this metal container. We are barely living from the charity of others. I have no words to describe the hardship we are enduring at the moment.
Daniel calls all Ethiopians to rescue him and his family from this endless suffering as they are living in a very horrible condition.
ልጆቻችን እያመሙብን ነው። ታመው እንኳን ማሳከማ የለንም።
Our children are suffering from the cold of the night, and we have nothing at hand to get medical care, as I am suffering from a chronic disease. What we need is a little help so we can firmly stand on our feet. Though these children are mine, they are also the children of everyone. They would be useful citizens one day. So please help us.
That ends our news for the hour. Thank you for tuning in.